My story starts before I got here. My mom was married to an abusive man, and they were living in Chicago. And she literally ran away with her two sons and escaped to New York to stay with her uncle. And there she was singing in gospel churches where she met my dad, who was a gospel singer also. So I was born back in 1952. Not really knowing my dad, but and my love of music is definitely inspired by my mother, which Sundays was all gospel music. That's all you heard. My mom was a gospel singer. She met my dad at a gospel church. She wound up being one of the founders of the church that I grew up in. And singing was something I did not knowing that it was a thing. You just sang. And everything was without instruments, so everything was a cappella. So whether it was down here as a young kid or up high, I could fit that range I just did it naturally. And so that was my beginnings in music. My mom allowed me to sing in the gospel choir at the church when I was 14. How I got into music, well, it starts at home. And then I think I was in the 5th grade when we had the music teacher going around trying to create a chorus at the school. And she would try everybody out. And well, I could sing falsetto. She was amazed at what I could do. And so next thing you know, I'm in the elementary school choir. And then that led to, well, let's try him out with music, with an instrument. So I wound up playing tuba from 5th grade all the way to my senior year in high school. Played in the marching band as well. So music, I guess, started in that sense when I was in 5th grade. Miss Barber. And I was crazy about singing different things other than gospel church, gospel music. So that was kind of neat. I felt what I did in the choir was limiting, though I got some training, but that limited me. Then, they found out in 6th grade, there's a song called When the Saints Go Marching In by Louis Armstrong. I freaked my teachers out because I could imitate his voice in the 6th grade. Oh, when the saints go marching in. And then they'd have me singing for different people. The literal training of the music was boring to me. I was challenged more by trying to find harmonies with people that I didn't know. But yeah, I got training. But for some, it helps. I did it, but it didn't change anything about what I did. I found I had more to offer than what learning to sing from your belly as opposed to straining your voice at the throat, in the neck. That helped. But if I'm going to sing a cappella, there are things you just have to do. You go into these other places naturally, but it's controlled. And no classical training can control. If you have the fundamentals, if you have the basics down, and I guess that's what the classical training does. It helps you with the basics. But I wanted to take it to other places, not knowing that I wanted to take it other places. You hear someone singing, or you want someone's playing a bass, and you want to harmonize with that bass. Well, you're going to do things that basic training just doesn't do. And that's where the love of music from my mom, and then my older brothers singing as well, harmonies and challenging the harmonies was more fun for me. In America, the original American music, I would have to say, has been gospel music from the slave, you know, the more so the work song. When you worked as a slave, you kept a beat, you sang. I remember my grandmother, when she would make batter for the cake, and you hear this flop, 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 in this big pot. And all the grandkids, we're gonna fight for when she's finished for the empty pot with all the what's left over and the spoon, the big spoon. And it would be this flop, 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 flop. And she's tip, 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 tip. Come, butter, I gotta do the sound. Come, butter, come, butter, come, butter, come, better make the butter run. She's mixing in the butter with the batter. And she'd have these songs. That was one that I remember from my grandmother. Yet, if they were picking cotton, and the conditions under picking cotton, and just to do, so you had a rhythm, and the music helped with that rhythm. So that has been really key in America. Work songs led to blues. Blues led to jazz. And anything that's really American comes out of the African and African American history, you know, from that society. So to sing blues in an old style with a more of a jazzy kind of feel to jazz. You know, I wound up playing in a jazz band, the tuba, in high school. Jazz is where my tastes go. I started out in gospel music, but to take the gospel, go to blues, I can put elements of my gospel background into the blues and more the jazz I sing. And so there are some popular tunes, there are some soul tunes, there are some jazz tunes that I make my own. And I'm continually looking for good musicians to help me bring about the sound that I want to give. And then from there, I have written my own songs. I played two briefly for you on the guitar. Those will change once I've got some real musicians playing what I do. And I feel I have something to offer. And I want to take you out of your world for a moment while I play with you through the music, while I communicate with you through the music. I call it play. Play almost sounds too less than. But when kids get together, what do? They play. I'm a kid in my 60s, and my play is my music. I want to clown with you. And if we're not doing music, I want to play. I will play with race. You know, I find things to play with so we get past race, so that we get to our interactions, our communication. And for me to communicate with you in any way, music is always, always in the back. I got the opportunity in Salem, West Virginia to sing with, on one song, Jim Croce. Operator was the name of that song. In France, I got to perform with Borelli Legren, a well-known gypsy guitarist who was an amazing guitarist. We did that in Guebwiller, France, and we did 3 songs together in Guebwiller. And then a memorable time where I was performing, I got to work on my master's degree in Russia in a place called Tomsk State University. And someone heard me sing, and the next thing you know, I'm singing for a university crowd at this little club in the university. And the place was packed. Packed, may have been maybe 70 people in a very small place. And we did 1 or 2 of my songs and then some jazz standards with Russian musicians. And the head of the of the orchestra played piano for me. That was a memorable night. People wanted to know more about me along with the music. And so from an hour and a half of performing to about 2.5 hours of discussion and music, it was one heck of a night. And then when it ended, people did not want the night to end. You know, people got to go home. And so there was a Q&A afterwards, which went longer, but it was a lot of fun. That was my most memorable for me. That interaction, people wanting to genuinely know me. Borelli-le-Grand, that in France, in Guebwiller, France. It was at the bottom, it was underground. It was in the basement of a monastery. That was my best performance. Borelli-le-Grand is one of the top guitarists on this planet, I think. It's gotta be one of the top 100. And all of a sudden your level, whatever you know you can do, crystal clear music, your level of musical skill is heightened. You know, I was definitely challenged that night, and I believe I met that challenge. History, you know, we live and we're going forward. I want to know what's going to happen with the future. But you won't know what to do in the future unless you've really understood the past. So I wound up going to school. I went back to school at age 50, and I did 4 years in 2 years. Got my degree in history, and I want to know where the past has led. So to understand the African diaspora, the history of humanity, to understand it, and because we have real issues, especially in America, you have racial issues. America is kind of a racist country with its enslavement and things, and we need to understand where it all came from. You know, the North Africans were heavy into slavery. They enslaved white people before they enslaved black people. To understand that history and why white people would be so upset against black people, it makes sense what happened in America. And it's kind of hard to disassociate me from history, because everything I do has been about trying to change how we relate. And one of the ways I use to bridge that gap between what is black and what is white, what is unknown and what is known, has been music and fun, comedy, being able to play. And so I tend to play with people with the music at times to interact. So music has been this real strong core for what I do and how I do when I'm relating to other people, because music transcends race, religion, economics, all the things that can divide us economically, you know, the rich and the poor, racially, the black to the white. So music has been instrumental in all of that, in every sense of the word. And so at this age, where I'm in my 60s now, Chez Bo, in France, you can go to a restaurant and they have it named, you know, Chez Pierre, for example. A dear friend of mine had a restaurant in Florida, in Tallahassee, and it was called Chez Pierre. And she wanted to do a small cafe where I did my music, and she wanted to call it Chez Bo, a cafe named Chez Bo. Boaz is a nickname, but everybody has issues with saying Boaz. They say Boz, Boaz. So Bo has been kind of, though my real name is Bryant. Bryant is an old favorite pair of shoes that just doesn't fit anymore, and Boaz does. And when people call me Bo, it's short, it's quick, it's easy, And the place that I offer, the food that I offer is music, the ambiance that I offer. So I call what I do Chez Bo. And so in Spanish, it's more like S-H-E Bo, but it's French, and I want that French lick on it. So that's been, so historically, everything gets right back to music, how you relate to people. If we're going to do anything in the future that's going to bring people together, it needs to entail music. You bring good music, and people are going to forget their politics. They're going to forget their economics. They're going to forget. You'll find in a music club, you'll find the rich and the poor. We've got to transcend all the differences. Music is a vital key in bringing people together. Chez Bo.